Welcome, everybody, and Happy New Year. Hope everyone had a wonderful New Year. It is hard to believe that we are in 2025 and we're going to make this your best here at Sustainable Success. And yes, we are committed each and every week bringing subject matter experts from all areas of business and also personal success to share their words of wisdom and insights to help elevate your level of success and your business to the next level. And again, feel free to reach out to us here at Sustainable Success at chris@sustainablesuccess.net. Feel free to talk to me or any of my team where we'll be able to answer any questions related to any business strategies or goals or objectives that can be systemized with the right activities and processes to move your business to the next level. Again, you can reach out to us here at chris@sustainablesuccess.net. Again, if you're new to Sustainable Success, found us here at Voice America. Now we're on the Lisbon podcast platform. Again, you can follow us here at Lisbon as well as Spotify, iHeart, and also Apple. So feel free to subscribe to any of those distribution channels where you can listen to this show each and every week here Thursday, approximately around 5 p.m. East Coast time. Today's show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and an opportunity to meet new people for the first time. Now, this is a membership program, meaning that it takes all the noise out of social media. No more of those noisy notifications. You get to come in and generate genuine and authentic relationships with the people you choose to interact with. If you'd like some more information about Alumni Direct, tell them that Sustainable Success sent you. You could reach out to them again at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Well, we have a perfect title today to kick off the year here at Sustainable Success. We're going to be talking about sacred rest. Yes, we all need rest. And the episode today is going to be called Sacred Rest, Recover Your Life, Renew Your Energy, and Restore Your Sanity. In today's fast-paced world, we're often equate business with productivity, and at what cost? According to NIH, ongoing sleep deficiency can lead to serious health risks, including heart disease, high blood pressure, and stroke. Now, for you business owners and business performers, this is something that we got to strike some harmony with. And we are here with the right person, with Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith. And she's going to be talking with you today about her REST method. Now, that's an acronym, REST, which I'm not going to give away. She's going to share that with you. And she is a board-certified internal medicine physician and work-life integration researcher. She is the founder of Restorsys, a professional development agency dedicated to restoring well-being in the workplace through the proprietary 7 types of rest framework to help companies support their employees with work-life integration and burnout prevention strategies. As a busy physician, author, and mom, she understands that life demands can leave you feeling mentally overwhelmed, emotionally strained or drained, and physically tired. Daily, she helps high achievers deal with the work-rest imbalance and find actionable answers to thriving lifestyle that they desire. And without further ado, we welcome Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith to the show. Hi, Dr. Saundra.
Hi, great to be here.
It is a pleasure to be here. We are so happy that you are here to talk about this valuable topic that is really something that, that I'm not going to say that it's like all of a sudden now this is something we have to look at. This has been something that's been an issue now for a lot of people for a long, long time. And, especially when it comes to burnout and, in sustainability and anything, are we getting enough rest? Before we get into what sacred rest is and more about the rest method that you're going to talk about, we always like to start with the backstory, a little bit about you that, as a physician, what prompted you or steered you towards really recognizing this as a challenge that could be better to help business leaders and performers?
Well, the simple answer is I burned out. I was loving my job, was at a position where I really felt like I could do a lot of good if I just kept producing within my company, producing within the clinical office, the hospital, and got to a place where I was producing things, but I wasn't really producing from a place of happiness. I was one of those grumpy physicians. I didn't have energy or time for people. It's like, oh, this is your problem. Take this, go away. And I think we see a lot of people like that. They start a profession with a desire to do good. And in the process of burning out, their personality changes. They are no longer actually producing work that they are particularly proud of. And I knew that wasn't the type of physician I wanted to be. And I also knew I wanted my success to feel good, not to feel like a drain. And so that's what prompted some of the changes.
Wow, I love that. And I'm sure the listeners can identify with that as well. I mean, you are a product of what you provide in terms of your service. Someone who experienced that herself as a busy physician. And it's so true because this applies to, well, doctors and lawyers and CPAs and business owners and CEOs of all types of business professions, that where harmony, when we have to strike that work life harmony. I like to call it harmony just because balance sometimes can be a daunting task in itself. So lead us to a little bit about, like, right now, where do you, like, what you're seeing right now at an individual level, and then even with just even organizations, where this challenge, if it's not addressed, can lead to further problems. Like, if there's any stats, any insights that you could provide as we before we go into your method.
Absolutely. I have a lot of actually firsthand insight. Currently, I own a workplace well-being consulting agency where we work with a lot of organizations and companies with employees that are burning out when or if they are noticing that they are having disconnections between their team members. And one of the things that we're seeing currently is that a lot of companies are starting to recognize the fact that you can have employees that are very passionate, but if they don't have the energy to do what they're passionate about, then they become a expendable resource. They become where you're needing to replace them because they're not showing up fully. I find that people who are energized, people who are able to think clearly when their mind's not jumbled with extra noise and input, people who have innovation and they're able to stay at high levels of creativity, those types of employees can do the work of two people and still have a smile on their face because they have energy. They're not working from their depletion.
Wow, yeah, that's so true. And, like, when you talked about earlier, I can attest to this personally. Back, I mean, I'm 57 now, but back, I can look back in my 20s, and of course I was younger then, and you think, when you're younger, you have, you could get away with the lack of sleep. But I found out that, I was not sleeping a lot back then. Even now, I don't require as much sleep as I used to, but I still get a quality sleep. And how, like you said, it impacted my attitude. It impacted even my personality, like even maybe the negative side of my personality brought it out more. And that didn't lend itself to being more productive. Like, I kind of felt like I was going through the motions, but not really executing at a higher level because I was operating on my reserves. And I noticed that before I made these changes. So I could attest to that personally.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we work a lot with entrepreneurs individually as well. And an entrepreneurial mindset currently in this day and age is that you grind and hustle literally until you drop. I've heard people say, "Oh, I'll rest when I'm dead." Yeah, you will, but do you really want to wait till then? It's like it doesn't make sense. When you step into being a business owner or a leader, a big part of that is you want some freedom. You want to be able to have some control. And that loss of control oftentimes is because we don't have the harmony that you're mentioning.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. And one of these things, like you said, even at an organizational level, like, yeah, we can't tell people what to do, how to do it, when to do it, especially when it comes to their personal life. But if companies are creating that awareness around it about the importance of sleep, and not only the impact that it has on your overall well-being, but like also your performance. If people are interested in, performing at a higher level, getting a promotion, getting that raise, or getting to the next level in their career, you got to have that harmony. Like, you got to have that sleep to kind of replenish, what you've lost during the course of a day. And it's so important. Can you share with us a little bit about like where companies are, or, even individuals too, where you feel they are when it comes to really understanding how important this is?
Interesting. We work with a lot of Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies, obviously under non-disclosure agreements, oftentimes, because I find that it's almost as if we're ashamed to say that we need rest. We see companies that mention just recently, actually, I believe I posted it on my social media, but I posted about Fortune magazine, one of their editors talking about putting into practice one of the 7 types of rest framework that I talk about in the book Sacred Rest, and just the effect that it had. And I thought it was interesting that it came out in Fortune, because that is the reality of it. When we work with companies, what we're hearing back is not simply that, oh, well, we didn't have as high of a turnover this year. It's that our revenue actually went up because our people were more innovative. We
Yeah.
want people to be able to think outside of the box. Exhausted, high cortisol, stressed out people, they are not creative. They are really kind of in the rat race. And so when we break people free of that, their creativity comes back, their energy, their passion, their motivation for the work. It's a game changer.
I agree 100%. Being an expert in the area of emotional intelligence, it's all about how we think. And if we're not sleeping enough, no matter how well or how different we want to think in a different way, it's not going to always be easy if we're not getting enough sleep. Share with us, some, about the concept of sacred rest. And if you'd like to go into starting to share about, the acronym REST and that method.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you mentioned about sleep, because one of the things that I start off with in the concept of sacred rest is that sleep and rest are not the same thing. Sleep is highly important. I 100% agree with you. What we found, however, is that most people cannot get high quality sleep because they don't understand how to rest. And rest really is about the restorative processes that allow ourselves to be able to get higher qualities of sleep. What the rest framework you mentioned breaks down, really looking at recognizing our current risk for a rest deficit. E is evaluating what rest deficit we may have. S is the science and research behind it. And then T is then today's application. How do we begin to put that into practice immediately? And it all boils down to our 7 types of rest framework. When you look at rest, or you're thinking about rest, instead of just thinking about it as sleep, think about it as 7 different areas where you need restoration. Any of these 7 areas can be depleted, and if they become depleted, you will feel tired. So then the question to ask yourself is, what kind of tired am I? Is it physically, mentally, spiritually, emotional, social, sensory, or creative? Those are the 7 types of rest, the framework that we've built out with our research. And that is what we're noticing people really connect with.
Oh, wow. I love that. And I'd love to, if you can if it's up to you, we would love to break that down. I know we won't be able to probably go through everything here in the first segment, but definitely can pick up in the second segment. But would you like to share about those 7 areas? Because I think, again, like you said, people just think, yeah, sleep and rest are the same thing. Not necessarily. And there could be different things that could be impacting the challenge. And if they're not aware of that, then how can you address a challenge to make it better if you don't even know what the challenge really is specifically?
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, that's the recognizing our risk. It's determining which of these areas are currently affecting us. So if we take a look at physical rest has 2 components. It has an active component and a passive component. The passive component of physical rest is sleeping and napping. We all know that we need them. It's not something we have to think about. Ultimately, you're going to fall asleep at some point in time. The active component of physical rest, though, are the things that we don't sometimes think about when we talk about rest. It could be anything from the body ergonomics of your workstation. Where's your screen on your computer monitor? What is your neck position? Is it adding to your shoulder pain? Is it adding to your neck discomfort? Are you having swelling in your legs or your feet? What is the height of your computer chair? Is it proper for your body height? There's nuances to things that actually affect how our body feels. And when our body does not feel comfortable, it affects the work that we do. Everything from, currently we say that cigarette smoking isn't as big of a problem now as living a sedentary lifestyle. Well, that's a part of active physical rest. It's the restorative process that comes when we have body fluidity, when we are moving our body and have circulation and lymphatics proper drainage, just from something like a leisure walk or stretching or using a foam roller or doing yoga. All of those add to getting the physical rest that we need.
Wow. Love it. Love it. I love that. And I know we have about a couple minutes before our break. Do you want to share any insights that you feel that to the other areas, and we can continue in the second segment?
Yeah, mental rest is one that affects a lot of people, particularly their ability to sleep. If you've ever laid down at night and your brain won't shut up, you're thinking about maybe your to-do list the next day, or maybe you're thinking about a conversation you had with an employee or your boss or someone, and you're ruminating over those thoughts. Well, that rumination process will actually keep you out of going into deep sleep. And so mental rest is being able to clear that mental space. And for a lot of people, clearing our mental clutter requires us to do physical activity. For example, you'll hear someone say, "Oh, I went for a jog or I went for a bike ride and it cleared my mind." And you're thinking, how is that possible? Well, activities that are repetitive like that take the thought process out. And so for some of us, we can get our mind to go to that quiet, kind of calm state by doing something that is robotic in nature. And another way of doing that could be what we call a brain dump. Just having a notepad at the side of the bed, you're ruminating over a thought or a to-do list, jot it down. When you jot it down, it allows your brain to release that information. And so instead of ruminating over it, the brain recognizes that that information is on something concrete, and it will release the thoughts so that you can get into the deeper levels of non-REM sleep.
Wow. Just powerful stuff. And I know we have about a less than a minute. Anything that, in the next 20 seconds that you could sum up what you shared in this first segment for our listeners?
Rest is a restorative process. It is not simply getting 8 hours in your bed.
Wow. Powerful stuff, everybody. I hope that, by listening to this, you let this settle in. And we're going to encourage all the listeners that have been with us, since the inception of this show back almost 8 years ago. And those, relatively been new, go back and listen to this episode again later, because this is going to be really important, because sometimes you might have missed something that you required to hear. This is such an important thing, not only for our personal well-being, but also for our careers as well, as Dr. Saundra shared. And she knows it firsthand personally what she had gone through. And I know that for myself as well. And also being in the area of emotional intelligence, how I could attest that sleep, not sleep, but rest, proper rest. And I know she's going to go into more of the other areas here to give you more awareness and insights that could help you where you are moving forward. We got to go to break, everybody. When we come right back, we got more to come here with the Sacred Rest Method and helping you both in your work and your personal life. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Sustainable Success. If you're just joining us, we are talking about sacred rest, recover your life, renew your energy, restore your sanity. We are here with Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith. She is a board certified internal medicine doctor, and she runs a group that works with both not only business performers, CEOs, but also organizations of all sizes, especially even at the Fortune 500 level, on her concept, the rest method. These are the 7 types of rest that she had already started talking about, 2 out of the 7 that were shared. So if you were just joining us, we highly encourage you to go back and listen to segment 1 of this show. Valuable information. So Dr. Saundra, I know that you had talked a little bit about, the physical side, mental and so forth. Let's talk a little bit about, emotional and social, that side of when it comes to rest, when it would not just sleep, but rest. If you could share with us.
Yes, this was actually the area that I was struggling in and didn't know why I was always so exhausted. Emotional rest really gets down to looking at how we manage our emotions. And for a lot of us, we are experiencing what I have come to call professional emotional labor. So there's a level of emotional work that we do in order to do our jobs professionally. And the easiest way for me to describe that is to give a few examples. We see it at times when we have, let's say, someone in customer service or like a flight attendant or something, and they're dealing with someone who just quite frankly is being a jerk. That person doesn't just start yelling at them or, any of those types of things. They keep a smile on their face, they keep it professional. They are carrying the professional emotional labor of doing that job by staying in a place of professionalism. But there's a stress attached to that because they are basically ignoring their true emotions to show up professionally. Well, in healthcare, and if you're a frontline worker, a healthcare worker, or even if you're like in the police or fire department, you're doing this as well as CEOs are doing this, and people who are leaders when they have to fire somebody who maybe is a friend or that they actually like as a person, but they're not doing the job well. But so for myself, I work in a location where when someone comes into my emergency room or ICU, they're not a stranger to me. It's actually someone I oftentimes know. At times we could be so close in relationship that I see them at the grocery store, at church, or wherever. When that person's in an end of life situation, I'm an empath. So it's not a number or a chart that's on that bed dying. It's a friend. It's someone I care about. And so in those moments, you would never see me cry. You'd never see me do anything that would even show that I have emotion because I'm going to stay perfectly professional in that moment. Crying does not serve my patient, their family, the nursing staff, no one. There's a professional emotional labor attached to that to do it with a level of integrity for the position. However, I am still human. I am not AI generated. I have to deal with my emotions, and I wasn't. Medical school didn't teach me that. No one taught me that. They taught me how to suck it up and get it done, but they didn't teach me how to actually manage the grief of losing people when you are in internal medicine at the level that I was working in. And I think a lot of us have to realize that if you have risen up in the corporate ladder, risen up in your entrepreneurial journey, and you have teams working under you, sometimes, especially like with COVID, sometimes you had to let people go because the dollars just weren't working in the account anymore, and you could not afford to have teams of that size. You're still human. Some of us have a difficult time with those situations. And we have to know that it's okay to have a therapist, a counselor, maybe a journal, and for some people, they actually get emotional rest minus other people. So for a while, I went to medical school in Nashville, and a large number of those achy breaky heart songs that are so popular are someone's emotional rest journey. It was their way of being authentic and true to their emotions by simply performing it, letting it out in an authentic way through art. And so for some of you, that might be a release as well. Maybe you don't want to sit with a therapist. Maybe you want to throw paint against a canvas on a wall. Maybe you want to write a song or write poetry. But we each have to determine How are we going to experience the emotional rest, that release, that restoration of that part of ourselves so that we don't let that become toxic emotions?
Wow. Wow, just powerful stuff here, what you're sharing, and so true. And what I love is that the way you break it down, because like people are going to be able to relate to any of those areas that you're talking about. And could you go into some of the other areas as well that because I know there's seven total that you can share, and I know sensory is one of them. And if you could go into that, I think it's going to be quite powerful for our listeners here.
Yeah, sensory rest is, let me put it this way. If you've ever been in a workstation, maybe where you could hear other people talking, or maybe your desk was near the elevator and you were hearing ding, ding, ding all day long. Or for myself, I'm in the ICU hearing vents go off and heart rate monitors go off and all of these background noises. And I used to say to myself, oh, I can tune that out. But I want you to think about that. In order to tune it out, your brain has to filter it. Some part of you is still working. It's not like you're filtering it on autopilot. And over time, we can develop sensory overload syndrome. For a lot of us, if we develop sensory overload, our response to that is a psychological response. It's either irritation, agitation, rage, or anger. We can see this in children, but we don't tend to see it in ourselves. So I'm a parent, and if you've ever had a child or seen a child who's 2 years old or so, and they're at a birthday party or at the carnival or wherever, they are perfectly fine the first hour or so of being there. And then somewhere around the hour and a half to 2 hour mark, they throw a tantrum. They're screaming, they're yelling, they're pounding their fists, and you're like, what just happened? Sensory overload syndrome. All of the excitement became too much, and their senses got overwhelmed, and the psychological response came out. For most of us, we don't throw a tantrum, we just become mean. And so if you've ever noticed, it's like, I'm not so nice of a person after 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, start
I
evaluating.
guess when your plane gets delayed at an airport, that's going to test your sensory abilities.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's so many settings like that where you can see that your sensory just overwhelmed. And I love that you brought up airports because a lot of people in business have to take a lot of flights. And even sitting on the plane, you don't think about the background hum of the engine and the wheels and all the people talking and all the different stuff. So when you get to your location, you've been seated for maybe 4 hours, but you hop off exhausted. There's a reason for that. Part of you was still working. And we sense exhaustion without actually evaluating what type of exhaustion
Wow.
is this.
God, that is so powerful. And think about that. Like, so in essence, your environment, and again, either we have control over our environment, sometimes we don't have control over our environments. It depends on the situation, but nonetheless, it's a reality. It's a reality, especially when it comes to the workplace. Yeah, people that are business performers are going to be traveling quite a bit, so they're going to be in and out of airports, and I've never realized myself. Yeah, that could be draining. That could be that, and I. That's why I brought it up. I said, wait a minute, maybe that's a reason why I've been drained in the past was because of the extensive travel I used to do.
Yeah, and here's a quick tip for that because I travel quite a bit as well. I do a lot of speaking and corporate retreats and events that have me on planes quite often. And what I've noticed is, just as you mentioned, there are many environments where you are not going to be able to change the environment, but the thing to keep in mind is that what restorative practice can I bring in? You can't manage stress. That's what all these things are. They're stressors, but you can manage your response to the stressor.
Yeah.
And so you're hopping on the plane. You see some people pop on these noise cancellation earphones and you're thinking they're listening to something. They're listening to nothing if they've listened to me. They basically are blocking out the external noise so that they take out a part of that sensory overwhelm process. They can't put blinders on necessarily. So their eyes are still engaged, but they've blocked out the noise aspect of it so that you have a bit of a sensory reprieve. Same thing with, when COVID hit, we started hearing terminology like Zoom fatigue, and we don't want to like be prejudiced against Zoom. It's all of those things.
Yeah.
But we started hearing that terminology. What they were describing was a sensory overload syndrome, sensory rest deficit. And a simple way you can do that if you have a remote team or hybrid team, instead of having everybody kind of in their house with whatever background, have a uniform company virtual background everybody's using. It mimics what would happen if you were in the same room together with a uniform background. And so there's simple tactics. There's so many of these that that we talk about, in practice when we're working with companies or individuals. But those are a couple just to kind of get people started.
Wow, I love that. And one thing I've noticed too, and something I found, this is going back a little while, but now I've noticed it's they even have it on TikTok now, is that I've always been a big advocate of frequencies, like, like sound frequencies, things that can open up your third eye, so to speak, or get you into that zone of focus, and it drowns out, other types of background noises that actually are distracting you, and like you said, in essence leading to fatigue, and could lead to frustration, overwhelmness, and maybe lashing out. You could call it green. I think they term it like green noise, where it's supposed to like kind of calm you instead of distract you. Do you find that those frequencies, do you feel like, do they help in any way that you've seen through your studies and research, Dr. Saundra?
I think they can be very helpful for certain people. Um, there's the terminology as far as being neurodivergent. I won't go into great depths about that. If someone has that, they know they know who they are because they've probably already been told that they are neurodivergent, or maybe you've heard terms like ADD or ADHD,
Oh yeah.
or HSP, highly sensitive persons. But when someone is classifies themselves in that way, sensory overwhelm is a huge function issue with them. It
Yeah.
affects how they function. And so it can be helpful sometimes to have something that regulates the ability to be able to kind of clear their mental processes. And so this might be the person who they try to go to, if you're someone who's tried to go to sleep at night and silence actually is disturbing to you. College students. I do a lot of speaking with college students, and they'll say, I can't study if it's too quiet. And it's like, okay, those situations, like you mentioned, having some consistent frequency background noise can actually help some people actually think more clearly, because it gives their brain something to attach to rather than the squirrel kind of mentality of whenever they heard something else and kind of branch off without being able to stay focused. And so, how someone's hot wired is a big part in the type of restorative practices that are beneficial to them. And I think that's the thing, it's so individualized. It requires you to take a bit of self assessment, a bit of an inventory of what works for you, because what works for one person may not work for another. Even within marriages, I find that we get a lot of emails from couples. Maybe one spouse read the book or took our rest quiz, and the other spouse will say, tell my husband how to rest. He's not resting because he's out chopping wood. And he actually is resting. His mental rest is in the robotic activity of chopping that wood.
Yeah.
That's, or fishing, or whatever it is, hunting,
Well,
we rest differently.
I love what you just said, because, a lot of times we are led to believe as people that it's one size fits all. Okay, what works for maybe this group of people? Well, oh yeah, it'll work for you too, and all these other groups. No, not necessarily. Like you said, some people have ADHD, ADD, or neurodivergent, that type of thing. Some people, so it's going to be different things for different, folks in different situations. And I love what you just said there, so people can really understand that you have to find what works for you in this case with rest. Here you got an activity where someone's actually doing something physical, and you would think, well, wow, that's not resting, but in essence to that person it is.
Yeah, we have to stop judging each other's rest and we have to start rest guilting people. And that, we have I love certain other areas of the world. They actually celebrate people who have the audacity to say, you know what, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to, take time off and do these things. And our culture has actually built the opposite. We've kind of built this mindset of people who rest. And I have to be honest, when I started this journey, I my mindset was people who rest are losers. They can't keep up with the rest of us high achievers. Until I actually became one of them. And I thought, you know what? I've accomplished a whole lot in my lifestyles. And I'm just now realizing that in order to be sustainable in that lifestyle, not just a one-off success and then I burn out and then I'm going to, can't keep doing what I love, but actually stay in the process of doing that work, going deeper in it, taking on more responsibility, compounding and building upon it, that requires rest because nothing else is actually going to be able to help you be sustainable.
Absolutely true. Absolutely. Well, I know as we got about a minute and a half before the break, Dr. Saundra. Anything else that you'd like to add to those seven areas, or anything else that to kind of really circle up everything that you talked about here in the second segment?
Yeah, will just finish off with spiritual rest for this part. So that way we only have two left for the next segment. And really, spiritual rest is one that's different for each person, really depending on your faith beliefs and those types of things. But regardless of if you have a faith belief or not, we all need spiritual rest. It's the concept of the need of belonging, feeling as if our life has meaning and purpose, feeling as if we are giving back to the greater good. And so I always encourage people that if you start feeling kind of disconnected from the work, that is really at the core of what spiritual rest is about. How do you impact the workplace that you're in? What is the part of yourself that you're giving to kind of the greater good to be able to allow them to grow and to expand based off of your experiences?
Powerful stuff. And I know you got a few more to share here in the last segment of the show. So, again, we highly encourage everybody listening, go back and listen to this segment, even if this segment alone, valuable information. Sensory is something, when you look at the sensory side, we often take these things for granted and we don't even realize that could be the very thing that's causing us to not be rested enough. And again, just because what somebody else does doesn't mean, again, that's going to work for you. You have to find what works for you. And this is why learning from Dr. Saundra and getting to know more about her organization can help you and your organization help you to achieve what you're striving to do with your people. So we'll make sure to get you all of her contact information here at the end of the last segment here. Well, everybody, we got to go to break, but when we come right back, we got more to come with Sacred Rest with Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Sustainable Success. If you're just joining us here, we've been talking with Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith on sacred rest. Yes, we all think that sleep and rest are the same. It is not the case. And there are many different types of rests or resting. So, again, if you're just joining us, we highly encourage you to go back and listen to this show again, especially in segments 1 and 2, where she had shared up to this point 5 of the 7 areas of what rest is, because again, we're different people and we have different situations, so we got to find what works for us. Today's show is being brought to you again by Alumni Direct, is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types. Now, it also features a From Athletes to Entrepreneur Corner. Yes, for you professional athletes across all sports. If you now are transitioning back into everyday life, perhaps you've left your sport, coming in to either start a business, a franchise, go back into the workforce, whatever that may be. Well, guess what? You don't have to do it alone. You can now bond and communicate with others doing the same in Alumni Direct in their special From Athletes to Entrepreneurs Corner. Feel free to check them out. There's also a podcast under the same name, and we feel free to check that out to subscribe. And again, you can let them know that Sustainable Success sent you. Again, alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Well, I mean, just some great information, Dr. Saundra, that you've shared, up, to this point, and just great stuff. Can you talk a little bit about, society, social, and creative? I believe those are the areas that still have to be covered, correct? That you're going to
Yes.
share? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Social rest requires us to take a moment and just think about the different relationships in our lives. And the majority of our relationships are negatively pulling from our social energy. That's not to say that the relationships are negative, it's just the dynamics of the relationship. If we think about our clients or our kids, our spouses, our elderly parents, these are all people that need things from you, and so they have a demand on you socially. You then have to think about who are the people in your life that don't need anything from you. Right now, there's a lot of people who talk about feeling alone or leading in isolation, or they just don't feel like they have a tribe. They feel like everybody who's around them are people who are needing something from them. And this was an issue long before COVID, but COVID did make it worse, where we kind of isolated even more. And we don't have as many adults, that is, don't have as many adult friends as, let's say, 15 years ago. A lot of us are focusing our attention solely around the people who need things from us. And so social rest requires you to think about who are the people you like being around who don't need anything from you. You just enjoy each other's company. You get poured back into through the relationship. And those can include family members, but you have to be very intentional. For example, if I just, if you're a parent, your children naturally are going to be sucking your social energy. That's what they do. It's like the dynamics of the relationship. For them to pour back in requires some level of intentionality, asking questions. I know for myself, we just finished the holidays. I used to always, my kids would ask, what do you want for, Christmas or birthday or all these things. And I'm at a stage now, I don't really need more stuff. I don't need more earrings or scarves or shirts. I prefer to get a social rest gift. Write me a letter that, here's an example. I'll ask them to write me a letter that just shares one thing that they're proud about as their mom. So something maybe that happened in the last year that made them proud that I was their mom. Or maybe name one characteristic that you've seen in me that has improved over the past year. These are the things that people don't say to each other. And if you have children, in internal medicine and the emergency room, we find ourselves often in these situations where you can have a teen or a college student who the family thinks everything's fantastic, and I'm in there trying to revive them after they've tried to commit suicide. And having this conversation with them, oftentimes they feel like they're only loved because of certain performance. And if they couldn't keep up that level of performance, that they're letting everybody down. So social rest allows you to reconnect with people and pour back into them in a way where they can see that they are loved and cared for and appreciated, and as a being and not just a doing, not just what they can produce or manufacture, but just simply because of who they are. And then, as you mentioned, creative rest. A lot of us have experienced creative rest. We just didn't know what we were experiencing. So, right now, my family and I are at my favorite creative rest location. We're at the beach. And so, if you've ever been at the ocean or been in the mountains or somewhere where the scenery is just magnificent, and you're like, I just feel so alive in this location, or I feel inspired and motivated, and it's like the awe and the wonder has hit your life. Rest. Creative rest is the restorative process we experience in our innovation when we allow ourselves to appreciate beauty in whatever form, whether that's natural beauty like the mountains and the trees and the ocean, or if it's man-made beauty like music or art or theater. We have to get back to a realization that innovation and creativity has to be fed. And when it's fed, it can grow. But a lot of us have looked at that as things that are just, oh, I'll just go on a vacation once or twice a year. And, that's the only time I'm around these settings. Well, there was a great study that actually looked at that. And so about 68% of people say that they experience creative rest around bodies of water. Well, they did an MRI of the brain after looking at body of water, after looking at a picture of a body of water, after looking at colors that resemble the water, and then after looking at like a field of flowers or something that was pretty but wasn't water. Well, the field did nothing for the brain for that particular person with that predisposition. However, the person who said water inspires and motivates me had the same brain activity, whether they were looking at the actual ocean, picture of the ocean, or color of the ocean. That's fantastic for most of us because that means I don't have to be at the beach to get the same inspiration. I can have a nautical theme inside of my office. I can put a picture on a lock screen on my phone or my computer of something that inspires me. This is the reason why WeWorks and Google have these brightly colored walls. Creative rest can be brought into workspaces in such a way that innovative people become even more creative.
Wow, powerful, powerful stuff. I love it. And and what I loved about what you said is like with creative, like again, it's in the eye of the beholder. Some people, like you said, the beach, it could be the mountains, it could be, just hanging out, near a stream or a river. It really, again, it comes down to different people and how that relates to them, and the impact that it probably has on the other areas you discussed earlier about emotional and physical. It could all have different impacts on those areas for each of us. At least that's what I got from it.
Absolutely. There's psychology behind colors. And so you'll notice some of the companies that I mentioned and others have these different color walls. You'll notice that even like in hospitals now, they might have an art wall where they ask local artists to come bring their artwork in, and it's like an art gallery walking down the hospital. There's rationale behind these things. It's not just there to be pretty. It's actually to help people stay in a certain mindset, and so these things can be created and replicated within our homes, within our businesses. Um, so yeah, lots of ways of bringing that into play.
Wow, I love it. Great, powerful stuff here. And as anything else that now in this area, like if you were, if you're now, I'm going to bring this to the organization level. Like if you were now introducing this, or somebody came to you, maybe you spoke at a conference and they heard you talk on this subject and they're like intrigued. What would you recommend might be the first place they start? At least getting the message out there, that type of thing.
Yeah, so we do the same, it's the same REST method, just looking at it from an organizational approach. So what we start with is looking at what type of results are they seeing? Are they seeing high turnover rates? Have they noticed that employees are less engaged? One of the things that every company wants are internal marketing. You want your people to be your best advocates. They're the ones that are going to go out and kind of wave the flag, getting everybody else over into your company. And if you're seeing that, do they seem like as if they're still motivated? So it's really looking at what is the current culture of your organization, and taking a hard look at that. It's difficult to say our current company culture is one where people feel exhausted. But when we do assessments with leaders, That's what we're hearing oftentimes. Our people are tired. And the thing is, because we assume that's only something they should be dealing with in their personal life, as if they already have been trained how to do that, we say, well, they have PTO time, we give them this, we give them that, but they don't know how to apply it. They don't know how to break it down in such a way that it's a small enough first step that they can begin somewhere. And that's what we're really have been working with companies. And so many times, we go in and sometimes we start off with kind of a town hall meeting is the best way I can describe it, giving people kind of an overview, and then often working with some of the teams more directly because some certain parts of organizations may have a higher level of stress. And particularly if your managers are high stress, I can guarantee your company's suffering because high stress managers who do not know how to manage their own personal recovery, how to do the self leadership of rest and restoration processes will bring down a company because they will stress out everybody that's under them. It's kind of a domino effect. So that's the things that we have people start looking at. What are you how well prepared are your leaders for rest and restoration and recovery processes? What are your overall teams looking like? And if you're having a high turnover rate, that's usually a good sign that something's not right and needing to be adjusted. And then you also
Wow.
have to keep in mind there's certain times, such as acquisitions and mergers. That's another time we tend to be
Yeah.
brought in quite a bit because if there's something like that happening, the unknown is one of the highest stress points. And so teams need to be prepared for that.
Yes. There's always going to be the unknown or the things that are beyond our control. And that's always the hardest part is to let go of the control you can't control. I know that's an area that I work a lot in myself and I know it personally well. I know before I want to leave some time to, make sure people get to know you, but real quick, if you're an individual, Dr. Saundra, and you're like, hey, I want to learn more about sacred rest, the rest method, but I'm unsure of what area maybe applies more to me or not. Is there like a process that you walk them through to determine that, an assessment, that type of thing?
Yeah, we have a free assessment that's available at restquiz.com. Really simple, restquiz.com. It is a true assessment. It takes about 5 to 7 minutes for you to complete it. Don't overthink it, just answer the questions. At the end of that, you get an email that lists out all of the 7 types of rest with a score, with an explanation of what the score means. And so we try to help people understand, yes, there's 7 things, but don't try to eat the whole elephant. Pick the one that's the highest level of deficit or the one you feel is most affecting you and begin to practice one restorative process in that area.
Wow, love it. We hopefully encourage everybody again to check out that link, and Dr. Saundra will mention it again. So, Dr. Saundra, I know we're getting near the end of the show here, and we want to use this time to let the listeners know how can they get in touch with you. Anything that you'd like to share with them, and please reinforce that link again for them to download for an assessment.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, the free assessment is REST deficit assessments. It's available at restquiz.com. The book that you mentioned is Sacred Rest, Recover Your Life, Renew Your Energy, Restore Your Sanity. And the book goes into a deep dive into these topics with examples for all of the 7 types of rest, as well as detailing some of the different signs and symptoms if you have a rest deficit in those areas. A large part of what I do now is working with companies and individuals to help them be able to put that into practice so that they are able to remain high performers and stay at a place of having a life that not just looks successful but actually feels successful, that they have the energy and the passion and all of the things that are needed for them to actually do their jobs well. And so our main website is just my name, drdaltonsmith.com. So very simple. And that's a quick way to get in touch with us to learn about some of our services, whether they be uh, group retreats, keynoting, coaching, all the things related to rest and restorative practices.
Wow. Powerful stuff. And everybody will make sure, again, that is in the show notes as well. So you can get in contact with Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith. Also, if you reach out to us directly, we'll also make sure to connect you with you. Dr. Saundra, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us here today.
And it's been my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. And listeners, thank you each and every week joining us here at Sustainable Success. And again, we are here to bring in subject matter experts like Dr. Saundra in to help elevate you and your business to take you to the next level. We are all about seeing challenges as opportunities to turn into results. So embrace the challenge, embrace the process that you can get to the solution. That's what we're here for each and every week, to provide you that insight from the different experts that we bring in. Till then, everybody, we'll see you next Thursday, same time. We want to wish everybody again a happy new year again, and we'll see you next Thursday here, January 9th at the same time. Take care.